It'd be good to hear from our design group. Joanna, John, did you post anything up here? Joanna, is there anything on the first one here you'd like to talk about? You're on mute at the moment.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Yep.
So group
Which
of
ones
them, the purple ones, ask the big questions. On the first image.
Yep.
That big question, I mean the questions about the whole. It's not about the debate of the elephant parts, because we could go forever debating what we individually have seen in the elephant analogy. So it's really asking the important big questions. What is it the system as a whole supposed to do?
What's the functioning as a whole? That's a good question, isn't it? It goes back to that ecosystem thing we were just talking about. How all those parts going to work together? What's the overall thing? Like I said about going to the house, right? That's what the person is wanting. They want an overall functionality of the house, aren't they?
Yes, I just saw this image of the person's questioning, and I think that's really important that we ask.
Is there another one there? That's you, this one? Or?
The first image?
No, you're on the next one. Okay.
Yeah, the next one.
Okay, we'll catch up with you again. So we've talked about that, not focusing on improving the components, but focusing on the whole, different visions integrated. Okay, that's a good one. Who said this? Different visions, integration. Okay, let's stay going. It takes to account different dimensions, scales and actors. Who wrote this? Different dimensions. What do you think you mean by that?
Yeah, it's me. Sorry. Maybe since I'm not a English speaker, native English speaker, so dimensions in a sense of also, let's say, for example, if we think about a system, it can be from the emotional point of view, from the physical point of view, so different dimensions in that sense.
Yeah, and it's important to kind of recognize that those things are actually different, right? When we talk about dimensions, we're talking about like things that are not just different, but they have different rule sets to them, right? A new dimension is a different rule set. So it's like you can't reduce them all to the same thing, can you? And that's why you have to talk about dimensions, not just different things, but they're actually like different contexts. You say maybe we think about designing a city, right? We might think about, the energy, and we might sort of transport. But there's also things like emotions, right? How do people feel about it? And that's almost a totally different dimension to thinking about electricity or to thinking about money or something, So I think it's that idea of irreducibility that there are different dimensions, and we can't just flatten it all down to one dimension. We've got to think about how we work across all those different dimensions. Okay, sense making at every step of the way. Who posted this?
That's me.
Hey.
The way that I see that particular picture is as we take adaptive actions in determining the different layers that are acting in a particular snapshot of a system, making sense of what's acting and what's not being seen or unheard, and bringing that into light as we design the next step.
Bringing things into light that maybe weren't seen before, and a certain sense-making process. It's not obvious. I guess you're saying it's not obvious straight away, right? Maybe what we see straight away is not what we think. Maybe there's a process we have to go through in terms of making sense and eliciting and bringing out something more fundamental, or things that aren't obvious to us straight away.
Yeah, and as I understand systems, you make a small shift, you anticipate that it would act that way, but because they are so complex and so integrated, it may show up in a different aspect of the system. So making sense at every step before designing for it will expose what we've not planned for before, hence the emergence.
Sure. Well, okay, let's dig on. We've got brief time here. So what's this one? It's adaptive and flexible rather than fixed in stone. Okay, we touched upon that. It places value on the interconnected nature, natural growth and evolution. Who wants to comment? Do you want to comment on that? Natural growth and evolution? Who is this? Maybe you're on mute, or maybe you've disappeared. Okay, we'll stay going. Structure is the result of architecture. Who is this?
Yes, me.
Hey, Jan.
Yeah.
Do you want to say a bit?
I posted a blog on LinkedIn a week ago about the thing I observe in design, and that is that architects most of the time have become designers instead of focusing on architecture. And I think this is about the structure that should be the result of design. And architecture is something different. Architecture is about the rules that you can use to design this result. If you're looking at system design, you should make a difference between architecture and structure.
You also touched upon an interesting idea there around rules. I mean, imagine designing rules. We always think of design as like something physical, don't we? Like very often, but like this guy up here, right, building his house. But, you know, this down here, or a healthcare service or something, it's a lot to do with rules actually too, and kind of institutions and things like this. So like Joanna's an enterprise architect, and that's a different kind of design, isn't it? It's not a physical thing. It's about rules and relations and structures and stuff like this. So I think system design, actually the idea of a system, lets us kind of move away from a somewhat reductionist thing where it's about physical things and products, and even beyond services, to whole systems and like the rules in those systems, right? Because that's a really important part of our healthcare system or any organization works. So designing those rules is an interesting idea. So collective intelligence, who is this? Is this you, Joanna, or?
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
So systemic design, the major difference is different. It requires to build collective intelligence. It requires individual actions. It requires participation. So that's a key aspect. So that leads to, if you observe nature or natural systems or biological systems, is the active participation of all individuals that generate the collective intelligence.
And that's kind of what we were saying before, wasn't it? How do we actually design for that instead of what we normally do, instead of kind of plans, right? We look at these guys here, right, doing a lot of planning. And we're looking at
which image are you focusing on now?
We're back here. But we're gonna go soon to the next one. Let's just stay going and we'll try and get one more.
I just have one more point. I think I accidentally deleted the sticky simple rules. So looking at this person entering at the airport. So simple rules, it's actually really important. We tend to talk about functions when we talk about systems. So we talk about emergence, that's a function. But the process of how emergent behaviors arise is important. So this is the same thing. We talk about self-organization, self-governance, but then how to enable that, the process of getting there, it's really simple rules. It's one of the core. So if you make it really complicated, people wouldn't be able to follow and to do a,
to get the desired emergent state, should we say? It's too complicated for them. It's a good point. Process flow. Who's this? Process flow.
That was me, Lena. I was thinking more about it from the interactive screen perspective of the experience in the airport.
UX, it also gets kind of service, like what's the process he's taking going through that airport? That's a service, isn't it? And how do we get something integrated across those different verticals that he's going to experience as he goes through that? So it goes back to the functional thing, like how does he get the desired function out of that whole airport, that whole system? That's a lot about processes and flows and integrating across different systems, designing and validate for human experience. Anybody want to say quickly about that before we move on?
That's me again. Yeah, so always thinking how humans interact in the system, and taking intelligence, as Joanna was saying, taking intelligence from that as well, and designing for and with human aspects for all three different levels, like the cognitive intelligence, emotional intelligence, and also some kind of an alignment with spiritual intelligence. I don't know, as an integral part of designing the system.
Yeah, and that's part of the kind of reductionist planning approach. So we have a solution, we push it out. In that world, we want people to just follow our rules, right, that we set for them. And we want them to be kind of rational agents and follow the paths that and not do kind of surprising or even creative things in the system, right? We don't design for the system to be adaptive and flexible to take value of their contribution and so forth. I think that's one aspect. So co-creation here again, yeah, unafraid to mess. Okay, I like that. Let's do things together. Who is not in the room? Yeah, good one. Who wrote that? Who's not in the room? Okay, involves multiple perspectives early in the process. Run away. This looks like business as usual. Okay, I like that. Diverse perspectives, local knowledge, unexpected opportunities. Diverse perspectives, local knowledge, unexpected opportunities. Okay, we don't have time to get to all of them. This will be here afterwards. You can come back and look at it. Let's move on to the next question we have down here. So what would be the beneficial outcomes of a systems approach to design? What sort of a world would good systems design lead to? Let's get cracking on that. We'll do 3 minutes. You guys take a look at those, all those images there, and I'll leave you far away. Okay, let's stop there. So, Stefan, do you have one up here on this image?
I'm sorry.
Do you have a sticky here on this first one?
Yeah, I wrote see the bigger picture and the connections. You can't say you didn't see it.
Yeah, so it's going to help against those unintended consequences, isn't it? Mm-hmm. When we look at the connections, so hopefully this is going to, what would the beneficial outcomes of systems approach to design? Well, it might start by us understanding those connections and not putting our foot in the wrong place all the time, and getting those unintended consequences.
It also supports critical thinking. In a visual way, actually.
Greater awareness, isn't it? And of the system we form part of, instead of just we want a particular outcome and we design a particular intervention without fully understanding the context, and then there's a lot of negative externalities that ultimately build up and lead to a kind of unsustainable situation. Another person touched upon sustainability. So what else do we have? Liberation of human wisdom, less good intentions versus better global solutions. Who wrote this? Chris, did you put one up here?
Yeah, iteration and unexpected outcomes leading to unexpected paths forward.
Okay, what do you want to say a bit about that?
Just what you think is going to happen and what you think you can sell something with often doesn't end up being where you go, because as you start testing things, you learn more and find out you need to go in a different direction.
Kind of emergent thing again, isn't it?
Yep.
And maybe we should just take account of that before we start thinking. We maybe start by being aware that we don't know the outcome. We don't have the answers, and there's a lot of uncertainty when you're dealing with complex adaptive systems. And then how do you actually factor that into your whole way of going about design, so you actually start to design for it and use methods and processes to design for it? And I think that's part of what the whole say agile and lean startup thing was about. It was kind of recognizing that when we start a business, there's so much uncertainty that we don't know what we're doing, and maybe we should just start a process, an experimental process to test things, and that might be smarter because it will let us explore a lot of unknown things. I think that's part of what you're getting at. So what's this? Good systems should lead to a more sustainable, resilient, and encompassing world. Okay. What's this one? Sustainability can be designed. Anybody want to say who's in the pink here? Okay. Break down complexity deeper and wider. Breaking down complexity deeper and wider. Anyone?
The idea behind that is as we break down complexity one step at a time, going deeper and staying wider. So constantly zooming in and zooming out from action to alignment, and just that dance that needs to happen, constantly being aware of that dance.
Yeah, it goes back to the need for holism and reductionism at the same time, that you're able to see the parts and the whole, and exactly as you say, zooming in and out. And as Russell Ackoff says, he says, the architect is the person who thinks about the whole building, right? And they never optimize a single part in it without it working for the whole building. So they're the ones who have to zoom in and out all the time, right? They have to think, is that the right window? But then zoom in and out because they've got to worry about the whole building, So that's a key part of it, isn't it? Having that capacity to kind of look on different levels and integrate across different levels. So this one here, fully engaged teams, who put that down?
I put that one down. I see in this picture just everyone really attentive, multiple hands raised. I think in a world where you're engaging the entire system as part of the design process, everyone feels like they have something to contribute and owns their bit of expertise, which helps with that engagement.
It's not easy, is it? I think that's part of the problem. It's easy to talk about this stuff, isn't it? Design systems that engage people, but it's a challenge. I mean, it makes things very complex, doesn't it? I think there's a good reason why we take that reductionist approach. There's always a good reason why we take a reductionist approach, because it's a simple one. And the challenge here, if you want to engage everyone, things get complex pretty quickly, don't they? Because you've got all these parts kind of moving around and doing their own thing, and you don't know what's going to happen. So how do you build a system that's really going to enable that? So I think it's easy to talk about it, right? These are nice things, but actually when it comes down to designing it, it's difficult because it involves complexity. Okay, so it would have us collectively choosing not to do many things. Okay, who's this in the orange?
That's me again, Chris. I just think there's so many things that we do collectively as humanity because of the way we currently choose to do things, because we don't look at the consequences, the systemic effects. And if we were being more deliberative and had a better understanding of the impacts, that we would choose not to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And just awareness again, isn't it? Awareness of the whole would shape. If you only have a partial account of the system, partial understanding, you're going to operate from that, and your outcomes are going to be partial. And I think that's always, that partiality always leads to something that's unsustainable.
Optimization.
The optimization, yeah, of the part, because that's all you're already seeing, isn't it? But when you're able to step back and see the whole, you can see the value of the whole thing, really, and the need to look at that. Everyone at the table, pay attention to counterintuitive ideas and voices, inclusion. So yeah, we talked a lot about this, the inclusive. So cities, anything here, reducing silos and segmentation, right? We've had that one. Collaborating networks of communities, consciously evolving systems coexist. Who posted this?
It's Lina. I posted coexistence. From the image, there's the, how can I put it, the manicured nature in the urban environment. So it's a little bit of nature in a more architectural cement-like buildings in there. So I'm looking at the contrast of the material of the man-made and the natural, and they coexist in this image and in the space. And I can see that there's a lot of different cities around the world that are also trying to do this, of having a super built futuristic utopia thing, and then there's these kind of like allotment type ideas springing up.
Yeah, I mean, it really expresses, these things really express our way of thinking, and it's very difficult to actually jump into a whole new paradigm. And maybe if they want to, if they have good intentions, maybe they stay coming back to building buildings that look like this, and not being able to really embrace and follow through on all levels of a kind of a new paradigm to doing things. Yeah, okay, so one more before we wrap up to the next section. So human flourishing. This is something about an education system here. So less work, more community, wholeness and well-being, deep dialogue and presence, requisite variety. Was this you, Joanna? No, who is this? The blue one? No?
That was me, Joss. Hello.
Yep.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I think requisite variety is important because if you have multiple perspectives and multiple ways of holding a story, you're able to respond to a variety of occasions that may crop up. And I think, yeah, so for instance, if we teach people to specialize in one field, that's really going to limit their ability to evolve to a changing dynamic of the market, etc., etc. So yeah, that was where I was coming from.
So designing systems for requisite variety. And maybe we can play off this image, like designing an education system. We're doing that these days. How could we design that so that incorporates the needed variety? And I think again, it goes back to the thing of kind of co-creation. If you want that variety, there's got to be a kind of co-creation. You're not going to have it as a designer. You're going to have your perspective, but then if you create a platform for others, then you can get a lot of diversity and you can get a lot of perspective and you can get a lot of variety. And maybe that's the part of where we're going wrong at the moment in terms of sustainability. We don't have enough variety in the system. In a sense, we build things that are quite rationalized and kind of reductionist, a bit like this. And if we can create kind of maybe more user-generated systems that include people and work with their perspective, we can get that variety and that potentially sustainable systems. It's just my thinking. It's all about the people, i.e. the customers, foster community building, foster diversity in all aspects and connections at the same time. So people are picking up on the idea of diversity here. And what do we see here? Smooth moves, it may be silent, but can move really fast. More shared resources, shared goals, and shared destiny. Integration of beauty, function, form, and sustainability. Who wrote this? System design and journey. Who is this?
Yeah, that's me. It's again like talks to the emergence in the now and choosing the adaptive action and not stopping at like not creating plan for system design and innovation, but like actually really probing, sensing, and acting from that place. So it's like every destination informs you of what needs to be heard, seen, and valued.
of like evolution too, and it's systems that evolve. And I think we see a lot more of these nowadays. Like engineers used to design kind of fixed things, and we're starting to see materials, like kind of biomaterials that kind of adapt and evolve. And we're seeing algorithms, these machine learnings that are kind of adapting and evolving algorithms. So a lot of it's happening, isn't it? It's not static systems, but it's more evolutionary now. Okay, so we're on the last one here. Let's go again. What's the question? Do you have any examples of what you think is good systems design or would be? You can play off these images here. Oh, we've got an additional one. Someone plunked another one in there. I'm not sure if we need that right now. Let's stick with the ones that we have. So this one here, it's maybe saying something about a kind of bureaucracy or something. That's what I think about it. What would be a good example of maybe a bureaucratic system that's using these design principles to make it more desirable and functional, so we say. And then we have a few more here. Yep, I'll let you guys get on with that. We'll go for 3-4 minutes again. No, okay. So simple and beneficial, also as simple as possible, but not simpler. Who is this?
That was me again, Josh.
Okay, good. Yeah, Chris, do you want to say
Just
a bit about
that? Meeting the problem where it is with a solution that's useful without trying to over simplify or get way more technical than you need to, complicated.
There is a certain amount of complexity that's needed. But I think it's Joanna was kind of talking about it too, right? We get that complexity through simple rules and the interaction between the parts, rather than necessarily having to design something very complicated. If we think about these kind of bureaucratic systems, they end up incredibly complicated, really done with huge rule-bound systems. And maybe we're looking for a certain simplicity in the interactions that will lead to that kind of emergent complexity, like that flock of birds. It's possible in the design of most systems, but maybe we don't fully understand how to do it yet. So designers included in public sector produces humane interface between individuals and bureaucracy. Who is this? How do you think that might happen?
That was me again, thanks. So I think the encounter with bureaucratic systems can be, for some people, a really dehumanizing moment. And so I think about what Joanne was saying with having simple rules. Those can help produce an interface that feels more humane when a person is encountering that bureaucracy, and they're able to understand quickly and easily what they should be doing within that system and how that system is going to work with them. That's I think a better kind of interaction.
Yeah, and maybe the system can be more adaptive and responsive to them. When we take a kind of planned and fixed rules kind of approach, we know in those kind of vertical centralized institutions, the people have to fit into the system, don't they? Like they're coming here to these desks and sitting there and so forth. But increasingly we see a world of kind of data where we can kind of understand people better, and the system might be able to adapt to them if we can design it in that way and go to them instead of them having to fit into the institution itself, which creates a lot of problems and frictions, I think. End user interaction model brings symmetry in the bureaucratic interaction, brings symmetry in the bureaucratic interaction. Who is this?
That's me, Stefan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think?
Well, one of the main issues with bureaucracy is that it only goes one way, and not being able to bring the information to give any feedback to whoever generates the bureaucratic situation. So bringing symmetry into this through mapping the effects is definitely a very powerful way in system design.
Okay, great. So reuse, optimization, seek optimal resource use in fulfilling needs via technical cycles. So who's this? Anyone here? No? Okay, so connects the needs of community and commerce to broader ecological concerns. Build from scrap, yeah, I think that's quite self-explanatory there. Hospice the old and midwife the new. Who is this? It's kind of two loops, Burkana sort of thing. Who is that?
So that's me. I think as we consider innovating or designing a system, the building on what's been there, so caring for the old, understanding the story of its emergence till there, not really going too deep so caring for what's already there and also bringing in the new.
That's a good point, isn't it? If we look at China or somewhere and what they did in Beijing, right? And blasted out all those indigenous communities and plunked in high-rise flats. And I think in the long run, people come back and look at it and say, well, we lost something there, don't they? Maybe in the short run, we feel like great, we've modernized and everything. But after a while, you turn around and you say, well, didn't we lose something?
Yeah. Another aspect to that paradox, I mean, I think of it as a paradox, is healing for what's been traumatized in system. And from that place of healing, really building new on that. So really the respect for what's in it.
Yeah, so true, isn't it? Like when we use this word innovation, we all want to think of fancy, new, shiny things, right? But we aren't aware that to really get something new and emergent, something has to die, something has to be lost, doesn't it, right? Some system, some structure has to disintegrate and fall to bits for something new to come. And we have to manage that letting go process as well as the arrival of the new, because it creates the space for it, doesn't it? And if you don't create the space, then nothing new can really come. I don't think you can maybe put little gadgets on top of the system that exists, but whether you can really get transformational change is probably not possible without that really working with the old system and hospicing it, as you say. So this one here, what do you think about this? Working with the circumstances, nature as measure. What's nature as measure?
That was me, Chris. The nature as measure is a line from Wes Jackson. He was speaking about thinking about how to use resources as nature would, as they're used in ecosystems as an ideal guide.
Yeah, and whether we're using them we're thinking about, are we using them efficiently in the context of some economic metrics? But this is taking it from a whole different perspective, from the perspective of the ecosystem, and asking if they're being used effectively in that perspective. Is what you're saying?
Yep.
Yeah. Whole different way of looking at things, isn't it? Design from pattern to detail. Who's this? From pattern to detail. Visualize the whole ecosystem, treating systems as living, informed by patterns. Who is this?
That's me. Again, studying systems as living systems and constantly probing and sensing for information, what needs to be. I suppose I'm saying the same things over and over because I'm holding that lens of continuous emergence is in the now, and that now needs to be informed from the patterns that we see. Really stepping into the human systems dynamics institute practice of pattern logic and doing what, so what, now what, constantly as we move into adaptive action.
So you used a new word there, I think, probing, right? It's a good one. As an experimental way, we don't know how the system's going to behave or what's really going to happen. We have to probe in certain ways to see what emerges when we do things, and then see what happens and readjust and so forth, an adaptive way of moving forwards. The resulting beauty can emerge autonomously, often a matter of perspective and unpredictable. it can emerge autonomously. Yep. Embedding local heritage in development, natural evolving and adapting, working with the law of nature. Okay, so this one here builds correction feedback mechanisms, transparent processes, collaborates and open source, design before development, rapid prototyping, create a visual understanding of the system and its dynamics. Who's this? Is that like a visualization or?
That's me again. Yeah, because one of the most interesting parts once the system has been designed is to see how it behaves dynamically.
But also, I mean, another one said here, transparency, somewhere there, but the idea that we may be able to visualize the systems we form part of, right? And how that would influence us, even the complex system. We're getting close to that with all this big data and, you know, these visualizations and so forth, like how that would influence our behavior and how you could actually design a complex adaptive system by showing people information about what's going on around them, you know, just like how much waste did these buildings all around me in the street produce? That may affect people's behavior, you know? So the idea that maybe we don't have to make all these big physical changes. You can change a system by those bits of information against kind of leverage points, because all you're doing is introducing bits of information into the system through transparency, through visualization, and then people's behavior can change as a function of that. Okay, we're going to wrap up now, but what we got here, a shift from linear back to circular, the power of the unexpected. I think this circular thing really expresses it, doesn't it? Like systems, it's all about circles, and this move towards a circular economy, it's so characteristic of what we're talking about in systems change, to move from a linear thing to a circular thing, but not just like on material flows, like on every level, right? In terms of, Stefan said it there, in terms of those bureaucracies, they're linear in terms of their information flows and so forth. How can we get them circular? So we've got circular kind of information flows, and people are adapting, responding to each other instead of a kind of push model. So trying to get that on different level. It's a tree, yeah, a little tree. Space for capacity to develop, grow and learn, ecology, cycling resources, working with nature, understanding the cycle nature of things, cyclical nature of things, provide opportunities where hope was lost, emergent design, grow and evolve the system like a plant. Anybody who's the purple?
Just that's me.
Anything you want to say about that, Joanna?
Yes, this is really important to not thinking we can design everything at the get-go. So we have to learn to design as we know more about the system, because we're not very good at predicting the future. So this is something called emergent design. That means how do you grow a design or a system like a plant as you go.
Yep. And you got to understand evolution a bit to do that, don't you?
Yes,
that's kind of what's happening. What's that structure through which you get processes of variety production we talked about, and then selection, and then duplication, similar to evolution. Instead of designing the fixed thing, designing the structure for that to happen. And that can be across all kinds of systems, can't it? It can be those bureaucracies we talked about. It can be whatever. And I think that's kind of happening actually with all the data that we have now, right? We start to see on a website, well, where do people actually go, right? You get heat maps. Which button did they click on? Which one they didn't? And then you get rid of the buttons that they didn't bother using, right? And you see the ones they did. And you start to get something much faster feedback loop and evolution in the development of the system.
Yeah.
Okay, people. There it is. We're going to wrap up now. We went over time already. Thank you very much for your participation. I want to try and synthesize this. As I was going through, I was thinking actually a good way to do it would be to create kind of a mind map over here and drag out, you know, we touched upon a few topics there, obviously evolution, adaptation, you know, integration, user-generated systems, so on and so forth. So it would have been good to actually have created a kind of a mind map at the same time to try and see what those main points are. But I think we'll do that next time. I'm still going to try and synthesize this, and I'll send out, I've got your emails, and I'll send out what we produce from that. Yeah, we're going to do another one maybe in a month from now. We'll stay going with this theme around systems design. I think our next topic is around, so that was, what is systems design? Why we need it now, right? And why is it a value? Why is it important? There's a few different conversations we want to have here as part of our group. So you're welcome to the next one. It'll be a month from now. I'll keep you all posted, and I'll send you an email about how we synthesize this. And the recording of this is on our YouTube channel, or at least half of it is. Yeah, great stuff. Thank you very much for joining, guys, and we'll meet again soon.